This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 196. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Grace.
Hello.
Kodra.
Howdy.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hi there.
So, it wouldn't be a recent AggroChat show without talking a little bit about Monster Hunter World.
Yep.
That's been a thing.
I hear that this week, hunters have found themselves into a quandary, a difficulty, a challenge. If only there was a good vegetable-based word for what I'm trying to describe.
I relish the opportunity to talk about this.
Wow. The game has already made all of these puns, so I'm now immune to them.
Yeah. So this week we got a bit of a balance patch, and also Deviljho showed up, which is this thing that looks like a cross between Godzilla and a sea cucumber.
Yeah, I get the nickname now that I've seen it. Yeah, he's a jerk.
He's really annoying.
So the first time I ran into him, I was hunting Dodongo, and I had gotten Dodongo back down to Skull, and then Deviljho shows up, picks Dodongo up, and just starts walking off with him.
Yeah, that's the thing he does.
And I was just standing there like, what do I do now?
He's a hungry boy.
Happily, Azure Rathalos showed up and made it a party, and while he and Deviljho were fighting it out, Dodongo decided to leave, and I followed him.
I find the most annoying thing about... Well, there's lots of annoying things about Pickle, but the one that bugs me the most is how often he freaking runs. Like, when you're actually starting to fight him, he runs constantly, like every few minutes.
Seems like he just wanders in and out a lot, no matter what you do.
He's got the same sort of issue as Basil in that his movement pattern takes him all over the place, so he's going to run into you no matter where you are.
Right, yeah, there's no safe spot.
Sadly, they keep that movement pattern when you're fighting them, so it's just annoying then.
Yeah, like when I was taking him down for the quest, it was so much harder than it should have been because he was constantly running away. I mean, although it gave me ample time to sharpen my weapon, but I didn't actually get to lose all of my blue sharpness each time I fought him.
So, I've killed Deviljho like 3 or 4 times. I don't like it at all. Like, there were a whole bunch of people that were super excited about it, and I was like, okay, like, the monster design doesn't really do it for me. Kind of looks like a great big Anjanath. We'll see. And now having fought him a number of times, like,
What
it's
do you not like about it? Is it, like, frustrating to fight? Is it just...
So, okay, soapbox time. You know Patchwork? You know, Patchwork back in WoW was a real interesting fight because it was something you'd never done before. It was just, let's take a really mostly straightforward fight and turn all the numbers up to 11. That's Deviljho. And it comes to the fore when you fight. I did the first time I fought him because I didn't want to go through the whole rigmarole of like hunting down tracks or whatever. I just jumped into the event, which is a tempered Deviljho. Tempered Deviljho can one-shot you with like 80% of his attacks. He straight up killed me with just like, you know how some monsters will like shake, and if you're too close, you'll get bumped.
The tempered one was put in. That feels like for all the people that complained that the original one was too easy when they put him in. They just turned everything all the way up, and
it's dumb. It makes for an incredibly dumb fight. Like, it's not hard to make a boss that kills players. It's not. You can turn the numbers up. You can just set the numbers to whatever you want because you're the designer. You can hit the button and he just kills people. And like, I mean, it's not interesting. And even the regular one, like, I get why people think, oh, he's hard. Oh, he's just, for me, he's just annoying. Like, yeah, he'll kill me sometimes, but because he, unlike almost every other monster, and almost is an important caveat here, but unlike almost every other monster, every other monster that I can remember that does this, they can hit you for one of those like small amounts of health, but it sends you flying, and then you're like stuck on the ground for a bit, and they invariably follow that up with a roar. It's a moment to make you. It's a really great moment in most fights because it'll stop you. It'll give you like a moment of breather, but it'll also ratchet up the tension because you'll be like, oh god, I gotta get up before he comes at me. But you always have time. Deviljho has no time. He knocks you down, and then the next thing he does is just face smashes you. Almost every single time. It's just a stun lock, you just die. He has like
Gigante then just shouldn't get up.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't he knocks you down in the way where you can still take damage. He doesn't knock you all the way down. He knocks you down so that you're like crawling. You can still take damage and he will still kill you. Unlike Nergigante, where you can have the choice of not getting up.
I don't hate Deviljho as much as you seem to. But the fight is hard for a few reasons. One, he tremors a lot. This is the whole you're stumbling, you can't move a whole lot. He is big. His hitboxes are huge because his tail is huge and his head is huge, and he just turns his entire body into a weapon, and it sucks. Unless you're under his feet, you take damage.
Yeah. Or you're not dealing a lot of damage if you're under his feet.
Yeah.
But he does sort of still fulfill the same role Basil did in that there's a thing here now. It's going to cause some areas that you maybe shouldn't be in. Although in Deviljho's case, the area is everything around him rather than there are some bombs on the ground. And I like that there is something else that comes into fights that isn't Basil Juice, because I'm tired of Basil Juice.
I agree with that, but I wish it were a more. I wish it didn't make me miss Basil Juice. Like having Deviljho interrupt my fights makes me wish it were Basil every time, with the exception of unlike Basil, if it happens at the very start of the fight, it makes my fight really short because I just leave. He deals a ridiculous amount of damage to whatever monster he's fighting, and then you just walk up and punch it and win mostly.
I don't know, like I've only done the normal version of Pickle, but I largely just find him more annoying than he is difficult.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I killed him with no problem, and like I wasn't even struggling at that point, but it was just super annoying. Like, I had to be extra cautious while fighting him, like Nergigante style cautious while fighting him. But like he kept running, so I kept running all over the friggin' ancient forest to track him down again.
That is definitely something that I agree with. By the way, like you have to be Nergigante level careful while fighting him, or even when he's around. And interrupting another fight with now you have to be Nergigante level cautious isn't fun for me.
And he seems to not be very susceptible to dung.
I think Ash hit him like 4 times before he ran away finally.
First time he ran away, second time it took, and I ended up hitting Rathalos, and Rathalos ran away instead, which is how we got out of that one.
What I've been doing like in those situations is just like walking away, since I have all of them on track at that point usually, and just wait till the one I want peels off and then go back after him. I've been encountering a lot of Pickle while doing my nonsense blue Rathalos farming. I think I'm up to around 30 that I've killed so far, and I still don't have a Rathalos Ruby.
How have you been doing the farming?
A mixture of lots of different things, because I've been SOS rouletting. A lot of them have been investigations. A lot of them have been optionals. Very few have been actual. Well, I don't think there is a blue Rathalos.
There is no assignment for blue Rathalos.
Yeah, assignment. But yeah, it's a mixture of investigations, and if if it's an investigation with gold rewards, it seems to always reward me a Rathalos plate.
So it's pretty solid for gems on gold rewards. Well, better for gems on gold rewards.
I mean, I realize I could probably be running my own investigations, and life will be easier. I just find the SOS roulette thing more entertaining.
You could label it for other people. Just start an investigation and fire off a flare.
I could.
Maybe just don't start one feint investigations with flares.
Yeah, no. I did that with... I was like, I know better than this, but I'll do this Nergigante one feint that somebody else had queued for. And I'm like, yeah, we'll see. And the person that queued for it was the one who fainted.
Oh man, I'd feel worse if it were me.
Yeah.
Look, if you open your quest up, you're asking for nonsense. I will do my best to mitigate the nonsense, but no, you're absolutely asking for nonsense.
How good is tremor resistance on Deviljho?
Probably really good.
No idea, because I don't spend any time on the ground. I mean, it seems like he would be crazy annoying on the ground.
Not if you're super far away from him.
I think the one cool thing about Deviljho is the fact that the gear that he has available off of him is very needed for that specific level range.
Yeah, I can see that. I guess
it gives you an easier to get option for getting over the Nergigante hump.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. His set is really good. Well, so
weapons are sometimes best in class, and you can get them before you have to fight any of the other dragons.
Right, exactly.
I can't see them. I've killed him 3 times, and they won't show up for me.
You still haven't done the mission, right?
I have done the mission.
They're way at the bottom of the list then.
I know where they're supposed to be, but I don't see them.
I'll have an answer then.
They're all 20 to 25% negative affinity, but their base damage is so high that it doesn't matter.
Many of them are best in class, especially for weapons that didn't have Diablos weapons. Like the greatsword, probably the best greatsword. The hammer is close. The hunting horn is probably the best hunting horn.
What is the best hammer?
Mostly the Diablos one.
Interesting. I should probably try using that.
The heavy bowgun is mostly a travesty, except you could use to blow things up, so there is that.
It has the craziest looking bow. It is a gauntlet that fires arrows.
It's also very good.
I ultimately I've got one more piece that I need to get off of Deviljho so that I can make a set of armor for my Palico, because I want a little Palico luchador wrestler.
What?
Yeah, no, the Palico set is a luchador outfit.
Also, the belt for hunters is also basically a wrestling championship belt.
So weapon balance changes. My dodge is amazing now, but
there's some real winners.
But Spirit Helmbreaker didn't get the loving that we seemed to thought it was going to get, because everything can still interrupt you while you're in the air.
I've determined that Capcom means when they say knockback, those minor things that don't actually knock you down.
Yeah.
So Spirit Helmbreaker is immune to those, cough, but not anything you would actually want to be immune to while you're flying through the air.
Right. So I can still get roared out of it. I can still get, anything that intercepts my plane while I'm in the air still knocks me. So that was a sad moment. I was hoping that a lot of the annoyances with that attack were going to go away.
I've been playing a lot of Longsword post-patch, and the improvement on the counter makes it worth it.
Yeah, no, because you can build up your charges so much faster thanks to that.
I need to get better at that. I was trying to do it and it was not working. Although I guess I wasn't trying to do it in the best situation to try to learn how to do it.
You were trying to do it in tempered Diablos, weren't you?
Yeah.
The only tempered investigation I have right now is one I don't actually want to do, which is Rathian and Black Diablos.
Ew.
Yeah.
I have 14 tempered Lumu quests.
Why do you have so many Lumu quests?
Because it's all I ever get from tempered roulette. When I pick up footprints, I'll pick up a whole bunch of Rathian footprints and be like, hey, now it's a Lumu investigation. Why? I don't know.
This week's has an event quest if you are HR 50 or better, where you could go into Elder's Recess and pick up a whole bunch of tracks for tempered Elder Dragon investigations.
Oh, I need to do that so I can do...
I am not 50 yet.
I'm also not 50. I'm 49, sitting behind that quest.
That quest was not as bad as I was led to believe. It was pretty annoying, though.
I set up a set of gear that I think will do okay, and I'm ready to try it probably tomorrow. So here's a little thing that I did not realize. I don't know what I was thinking, but basically I was thinking every time I picked up trade-ins that they auto-sold themselves, because I never really did see them. But no, that's absolutely not the case. Nope.
Did you just make a whole bunch of money?
I made a whole bunch of money. I was up to 200,000 Zenny earlier. And then I crafted a ton of shit. So that may be why I've been hurting for money.
I find it... I haven't done this either and probably should, but I also find it funny that 200,000 Zenny is a lot of money.
It's an appreciable amount of money.
It's a lot of money to me.
That's fair. I have been aggressively pursuing things that give me lots of money. So I've been sticking around the 300,000 mark, and I should probably sell these things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to find them.
They're in your box.
If you sort your box, they're at the end of your items list.
Yep. Yeah. I've started running the bandit poncho, So I've got a lot of those that I need to remember to sell.
I think I have a different experience with weapons because, like, I've mostly only really gone after long swords. But I did make a switch axe that was a Xeno switch axe earlier.
Seems like a good place to start.
I mean, like, might as well make an end-game switch axe.
That's what I
to
did
see
with
if
the
I like
longsword.
it.
I figured I would find out if I liked the longsword by making the Xeno longsword, because it looks amazing.
Like, I have a feeling I'm going to like switch axe. Like, it looks like a weapon that would be down my alley, but also that's one of the easiest weapons to make other than the gem, and I seem to have gotten gems quite regularly for Xeno.
Oh yeah, I have a lot of Xeno gems while I was trying to get Xeno horns.
I'm hoping that, like, once I get on the other side of Kieran, that I will get more 9-star quests, because I only have the one, and it's Rathian and Black Diablos, and I don't want to run that.
I wish I had
intend to
better...
complete this week's weeklies by SOSing Xeno, who is a 9-star quest.
Seems legit.
Oh, so we can do that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, then I'll just do that, because Xeno's easy. Like, Xeno is annoying, and I did not like fighting it by myself, but SOSing into Xeno, no, it's cakewalk. So long as I've got someone else pulling the hatred away from me, I do not mind Xeno.
Xeno, I should fight more Xeno, but Xeno is there is a design oversight involved in making Xeno.
Oh?
Xeno cannot attack up.
Xeno,
There are a
all
lot
of
of monsters that
Xeno's
can't attack up.
Xeno cannot attack up, and has its wings don't have attack frames in them anywhere.
Like, it doesn't have a body hitbox when it moves, like a lot of others do.
It doesn't have a body hitbox when it moves. It attacks down almost always, and
which is fine for most people because it's freaking huge.
Yeah, its feet have great big damage hitboxes, but most of my Xeno fights end with me taking basically 0 damage unless I like do something stupid, because it just can't hit me. And and its body is long enough that you can go back and forth along its body with the insect glaive attack until you run out of stamina. So I go back and forth along its body until I run out of stamina. I run around regaining stamina, and I do it again. And I spend basically the entire fight in the sky killing that thing, with it unable to do very much to me.
I spend a lot of time walking around and hitting its front paws. Like, really, that's kind of my jam, is hit its front paws, try not to get breathed on.
You can't mount it, though. It's not mounted.
Which is weird, considering how many things you can crawl up on in that area.
Yeah.
So, the other thing that I've noticed is because it can't attack up, and it won't actually break, there's 2 of those things you can walk up on that I've never seen it break. So, if I need to heal, I just run up there real quick and heal.
Its flying attacks can still hit you, but that's kind of it. Also, while it's flying around, all of the various slinger ammo it drops will knock it down.
Yeah, which is easy. Like, by that point, by the time it goes up the first time, there's usually tons of that on the ground.
Yeah.
It's a weird fight. Like, it scared the shit out of me the first time, and then the preceding 6 times that I've killed it, it was nothing. Now that I understand what it's doing, it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah. Incidentally, we were talking about the updates to weapons. Insect glaive, so good. They gave me everything I could have possibly wanted. Didn't take much.
My weapons didn't get what I feel were very noticeable changes.
Yeah, mine doesn't seem like it's noticeably different.
Yeah, mine either.
Although I will say that maybe it was just that one fight, but Deora fell over from KO hits a lot more when I fought her. But I didn't feel like I was doing a lot of level 2 spashes against her.
I wondered if Deora is just weak to stuns.
Might be.
So the funny thing is like, having fought the 3 Elder Dragons and Nergi and Xeno, I still feel like Nergi is probably the toughest of those fights.
Toaster is harder?
Well, I mean, Toaster is cheap. The thing that makes Toaster difficult is the fact that it throws up the flamey aura, and it just becomes cheap at that point. I went into it with enough fire resist that its aura was doing nothing to me, so it becomes far more mitigatable at that point.
I go into that with
I had a similar experience with Kieran, because I went into Kieran and it completely wrecked me, and then I went and made all the thunder resist, and it was much less of a problem all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I go into Teostra with a very fast hitting weapon and a lot of Elder Seal, and it does not stay on fire for long. But I also have the set bonus of status effects go away way faster. So all I have to do is air dodge, and being on fire goes away for me, which is very nice.
A lot of issues just standing close to Teostra, taking too much damage.
I guess that would be the other Insect Glaive benefit, is I'm never close to the enemy for very long.
I tried it with Lance, and I tried it with Dual Blades, and both of those basically mean you stick to the monster as much as possible, but that was a problem.
Yeah, I can see that. I've done it with Glaive, Longsword, and Charge Blade. And Charge Blade was by far the hardest.
Honestly, that's another thing I like about Pickle, is the fact that it's another weapon with high Elder Seal. Because you have, the Xeno weapon and Nergi, and that's it?
Xeno and Dragon Ball weapons are low, Val weapons are medium, Nergi and Deviljho are high. Not everyone has weapons from all of those monsters, of course. Well, I guess everyone has a Deviljho weapon.
As a callback, the Deviljho weapons, the Charge Blade looks amazing.
I'll have to make one.
It's
a chainsaw.
So cool.
It's a chainsaw.
It's also the better option for Dragon Element File. The only other option is Val, and that one looks kind of stupid.
I don't know, there's still a large sense of joy for me in helping people get over humps of fights that are not, that they're not past yet. Getting Thalen through Nergi was a major happy moment for me.
For me, too. Means I get to try and fight other things now.
Because we had tried it, 3 times at that point by the time we killed it?
Yeah.
I mean, Nergi was a hard fight for me. It took me a bunch of tries to get through it, finally.
Yeah.
Well, I do feel like I definitely learned over the course of that, because, I don't think anybody fainted on that final attempt.
No,
I didn't, which was a first.
We got it through no problem. Quite honestly, on that attempt, we just wrecked Nergi.
Yeah.
You were running Lance, weren't you, Ash?
Yeah, I had a nice shiny new Balhazak weapon I got to bring into that one.
Lance is overpowered on certain fights, I swear.
Lance is just good, and it got one change in the patch, and the change is so amazing. Lance has actual super armor following successful counterattack. Because previously, if you countered the wrong thing, like a multi-hit attack, you would then take the next hits without blocking. Now you don't. You still take damage, but it's sort of like when the Greatsword shoulder charges through things, and you take much less damage.
Lance is definitely one of those weapons that I want to give a shot at some point, because I think it would be a weapon that I like.
I'm a little upset that getting better at Lance means I'm getting worse at Gun Lance.
Well, they kind of do 2 separate things, don't they?
Uh-huh.
Unless, I guess, I don't know, does anybody use the long-range Gun Lance?
Even the long-range Gun Lance is not that long. But those are, the Zora Magdaros Gun Lance is kind of crap as a lance, but pretty great as a cannon. So that's one that people just use and just fire bullets all day.
I don't know, I've seen somebody fight Diablos with a gun lance just by shooting in the head over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, gun lance is a silly weapon. It's a cool weapon, but it's a silly weapon.
I think part of my dropping gun lance almost entirely is discovering the heavy bow gun and do the best thing gun lance does, because you get so gun lance has, if you are blocking and press both attack buttons, you get Wyvern Fire, which you charge up for a second into a huge giant explosion. Heavy bowguns have Wyvern Ammo, which when you fire it, you charge up for a bit, and it's a huge giant explosion. And then you can reload and do it again. Gun Lance has something like a minute cooldown before you can do it again.
Yuck. A minute is a really long time in a fight.
Yes.
I think the other thing that I learned this week that I should have known but never really thought about is that if you are using a mantle and your monster runs, you want to take the mantle off immediately so it can start recharging.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't really been using mantles until just the past couple of days. I've started experimenting with them a bit because, I've been using the health mister because I really like health.
I also really like health, so I've been using the Vitality Mantle for the most part.
Yeah, Vitality Mantle is really good. It's basically don't take damage unless you're up against somebody that does fire damage.
I don't think I have it yet.
Large hits can go through the mantle, but otherwise it's just some health on top of your health.
So if you get hit by fire while you're wearing the mantle, there is a animation that looks like the mantle is burning off, and then it's gone.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, it's a thing.
But very large hits, like Odog jumping on you, like directly, can also go straight through that mantle.
Yeah, but then that's just you taking some damage, not
Yes.
you losing the benefit of the mantle, right? It doesn't peel the mantle off of you.
It doesn't. It deals some damage to the mantle and some damage to you.
Yeah. Yeah, with Flame, like, literally you just don't have the mantle anymore, and it starts ticking down your cooldown.
Aww.
Downside is I can't run Bandit if I'm doing that.
Yet.
I mean, you can't have two mantles on at the same time, can you?
Not at the same time, no.
Yeah.
Just being able to bring two with me, yeah.
It's soon? I don't know how far along you are at the moment, but soon.
As long as they don't share a cooldown.
They don't.
Cool.
Yeah, because for the longest time I was running Mister and Vitality Mantle.
I mostly run the Mister during Balthazar.
So I'm going to do a really crude segue here, but it makes sense in my head. Prior to recording the podcast, Grace and I were talking about crafting systems in games and like what we liked about them and what we didn't like about them. And honestly, I really, really, really like the crafting system in Monster Hunter World. And I feel like a lot of games could benefit from learning from it.
What do you mean by that?
So some of my favorite times in MMOs were when I could craft a set of gear based on a thing that I could hunt. And I can remember, like, back in EverQuest, there was a set of gear you could get by hunting these giant beetles and taking their shells and taking them to a smith in Butcher Block, and it would make you nice plate gear. That was, I mean, relatively nice for the level. Like, I mean, it would hold you for a while.
Yeah. Good luck finding a flawless giant beetle carapace, though. I can't.
Yes.
God, I can't remember how long I spent hunting after one of those things.
But that's not the only case where there was go hunt a thing and bring us the parts and we'll craft you gear from it. And I thought it was cool. Like, I really like when a crafting system gives me an entire set of a thing. Because, like, one of the things that always bugged me about the World of Warcraft smithing system, for example, is at least until late levels, you could never craft an entire set of a thing.
Oh, yeah,
and even
these
then,
red gloves and then blue boots.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just total nonsense pieces. Or if you had an entire set of something, it was staggered. So, this level I can get a chest piece, and 2 more levels I can get some gloves.
Let me make these thick leather chest piece. Oh wait, the thick leather gloves are 8 levels from now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So by the time you can make the final piece of the set, the first thing you knew how to make isn't worth using anymore. Yep.
And like on the other side, I loved EQ2 system of every 10 levels there was a full set of gear. So it allowed you to kind of either save up cash or save up materials, knowing that in 10 levels I could make an entire full set of gear and live off of it. And I thought that was so cool.
Well, that's one of the things that's important to me is, like, if I'm saving up a bunch of materials for a while and, like, working hard to, like, come up with enough stuff to craft something, then, like, I want to be able to use it for a while. I want it to be worthwhile. And it is intensely frustrating in games where it's like, here's this crafting system, and it's, like, super pain in the ass to learn the recipes for these items, and then it's just, you know, like, it's a lot of work to gather all the materials for them, and by the time you've done all of these things, this item is useless to you, because you've now out-leveled it, or you found other random gear laying around that was better, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be able to craft a set of something. It doesn't even all have to look cool, as long as it all goes together, and it has to be something that's actually worth the effort that I put into it.
You know what crafting system is probably the most satisfying in a game that I've played in terms of that kind of thing? The Old Republic. I thought you
were going to say ESO.
No, I usually don't try not to plug my own games.
But it was really good for that.
ESO is a really good crafting system. Like, I loved it while I was leveling.
I didn't really explore it as much as I should have.
I mean, ESO crafting, honestly, was as close to a perfect system for me as you can get. Because I knew that every so many levels I could make a full set of gear, and it was going to be the best thing I could get for that level, other than something deep down from a dungeon that was a rare drop.
That's cool.
And even as I've leveled into my third area of content, I still know every so many levels I can plan a set of gear. I can go to the right crafting locations and make all the pieces I want, and then upgrade them to epic quality because I have a stack of materials waiting for that purpose, and then be set for a while for another 20 champion levels once you've gotten into the in-game stuff. And I love that. I loved knowing there was a fixed point in time in which I was going to upgrade everything and be done for a bit, and then could focus my effort on gathering back up the resources for the next point at which I did that. But anyway, sorry to interrupt you, Tam. you were going to talk about SWTOR.
Oh, I part of my like Star Wars player fantasy is I play a Jedi and can make my own lightsaber and continue to fiddle with it while I go through the game, and that's exactly what I could do, and it was great.
Yeah, that system was great because it let you get attached to an item, an armor or weapon that you made, and continue having it be useful indefinitely.
It was awesome. I loved it.
Well, I like the fact that they've basically gone to nothing but mod armor at this point. Whereas, it was frustrating in that game that a lot of what you were getting, other than dungeon gear, was not moddable armor. And it made me hold on specifically to the moddable pieces, for dear life, and try really hard never to use anything but that until you got it into the dungeons, and then it was mostly just unmoddable gear. Or the later dungeons.
I also like systems that give me some measure of control. So, one thing that made me crazy was, I guess, during last expansion, when WoW had, random stat affixes on your crafted gear. So you would never know, is this piece going to craft with haste on it? Is it going to craft with mastery? I don't know. Is it going to be?
I think that
a stat
started with
useless?
Panda.
I thought it was Draenor, but wherever it started, it was dumb. It was this is a bad idea.
That sounds awful.
And so, I have mixed feelings about games that make you play a bit of a mini game for your crafting. So, WildStar does the target diagram thing and some other little quasi mini game things for crafting. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that, but at least there, you get to choose what stats you want to try to boost. If you want to sort of overclock your crafting, you pick what your priorities are for that.
Yeah, that's the bad part of EverQuest 2's crafting system, is that it is absolutely a mini game. You have 6 abilities on your crafting bar, and the first set will counter a condition that arises in the crafting process, but I think you lose total quality, and the second set is you lose progress. And there's 3 conditions that will happen sometimes while you're crafting an item, and you have a window of 5-10 seconds to push the button, or you're going to lose a ton of progress and ultimately fail the item.
It's sort of like FF14, only not turn-based.
Exactly. It is like FF14, but not turn-based. And FF14 felt infinitely better because you could kind of plot a course. And at any point you need to stop and think through the equation, you could just do that. It wouldn't move on without you. You can figure out what it is that you need to do to fix what happened. Or even, I guess, stop the crafting and you wouldn't lose your materials.
Does FF14 count as a mini game, or is that just game?
It's its own separate game.
Gone on to game, yeah.
I wouldn't count it as a mini game. It definitely it's its own thing, but I don't know, it's somehow more satisfying and less frustrating than a mini game because it doesn't feel arbitrary. It feels like you're having an encounter, but instead of with a creature, it is with this thing you are crafting.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's another good example, I think, because you can make some incredibly useful stuff, and that may stay useful for a while.
Well, stay useful forever in a lot of cases because, we all know what the final game is.
Also true.
But also, yeah, it tends to have good stats on it.
Yeah, and also, I don't know. I mean, I started doing a little bit of crafting, started falling down that hole in F14, and the low to mid-level crafting gear that you can make sells for a ton, because unlike the normal combat gear, you can't buy that anywhere.
Mm-mm.
Yep.
So you get to play the crafting game, and you also get to play the market game. And, I mean, depending on how much of each you're doing, you may still end up losing a lot because crafting can be expensive. But it helps offset things some at least.
Well, 14 did a really good job of putting in enough things that were crafter only that never really lost value.
I really need to take a look at it again because I feel like I heard that they got rid of the stuff.
Nope. Everything we frustrated you is still there.
Oh,
you
Cool.
still really want to be everything.
all right.
It's a little less bad to not
It
be
is
everything.
less bad than it used to be.
But it's
Yeah,
still
in
not
the crafting game that is you play at the point at which you are playing the crafting game where there is no relative victory. It's if you're slightly suboptimal as a DPS, it maybe takes you 10 seconds more to kill the boss, and if you don't hit the enrage, then you're fine. But if you're a slightly worse than optimal crafter, then you just don't make the good stuff, and that's a bad feeling.
We have gotten a little farther in that if you are a specialist crafter, there is some stuff that those skills get you the ability to make some stuff that you don't need to be an omnicrafter for. But it is still better to be an omnicrafter.
Yeah. I feel like it is. Yeah, I don't know. I always felt like the trade-off between being an omnicrafter and not was conceptually that an omnicrafter can make all of the items for all of the categories, and if you're a specialist crafter, you can only make all of the items for one of the categories. But no, they make you double. You play double jeopardy with that.
It seems like maybe the optimal way to level is not necessarily stair-step everything up anymore. You can afford to let one go all the way up.
Yeah, but that's mostly because it gives you access to crafting dailies.
I don't know.
F14 gives you useful, interesting, different ways to level your crafting. Also, just nice to actually have some sort of alternate path to level. In PvE, you have lots of presumably different things you could do at any given time to move your bar forward. And usually with crafting, it's you have to just keep crafting more things. But at least at F14, you have some dailies and other stuff that you can beast tribe things can help.
Well, there's 2 beast tribes that are crafter based, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Currently.
Pickle and Moogle.
So I guess in theory, if you're doing both of those, you're probably moving your crafts pretty fast.
Yeah.
You can't really do them both for the same craft because
Oh, okay. So
Google is 50 plus, and Excel stops giving you XP appreciably at 50.
Yeah, you're doing the Excel until you reach the dragon areas, and then you're doing Moogle.
I did have maxed gatherers, but I don't know, the Heavensward Gathering was frustrating. I don't know why it seemed so much worse than moving the needle in the old world. But ultimately, this all started out of a discussion about the horrible state of professions in World of Warcraft currently.
Well, because they're sort of some of the worst of all the things we've talked about, right? Can't make a whole set of stuff until you're at endgame. And when you get there, that stuff is probably not useful to you anymore.
And the thing that killed it for me is, crafting has always been something that I did a lot on alts. I was the World of Warcraft version of an omnicrafter. I had an alt for every profession. And with Legion, they made it so that it's just not worth doing alts. It's just frustrating to get any of the stuff because it involves, either tons of harvesting out in the world or doing dungeons, or it was a very slow, irregular process to go through.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I like leveling alts to have professions so that I can either make a little gold on the side or just because I like the process. And Legion basically funnels everything into, well, you're going to do this endgame stuff we think everyone should do. So you might have to raid or do mythics or whatever to do your crafting. And that's a big no-no. Like, don't cross things that way. Like, keep crafting and everything else separate.
It was just a case of whiplash that we went from Warlords, which was probably the most alt-friendly expansion, to the least alt-friendly expansion, at least when it came to crafting. And I'm kind of curious to see how things go with Battle for Azeroth.
Are you coming around on that one?
What?
Are you coming around on that one?
I don't know. Like,
Not yet.
I'm in alpha now. So
I mean, so far they're getting rid of whole profession, and I don't feel great about that.
Which one?
What?
They're getting rid of first aid.
Oh.
Which, okay, it's not the most useful profession, but the thing to do to fix it isn't to just destroy it completely, right? Like, there are other interesting things you could do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this week on Wednesday, I got into Battle for Azeroth Alpha, and it is the most alpha I have seen from Blizzard in a really long time. Because like the last couple alphas that I had been in for a Blizzard WoW expansion, really the game felt mostly there. It was all fit and finish at that point, so they were not actually alphas. But yeah, no, this one is legitimately an alpha. There's tons of broken stuff. So, but I don't think they've done much with the trade skills yet. So I'm really curious to see what happens there.
Yeah, other than completely gutting first aid and randomly folding a couple of the recipes into tailoring. I mean, that's like the extra weird piece of it to me, I guess. It's like, if you think it's useless and broken and you're gonna get rid of it, like, okay, I don't entirely agree with you, but okay. But instead you're like, well, no, we think that these things are useful enough, we still want them in the game, but we're gonna not have a profession that lets people do that, and we're gonna give, the people who probably need bandages the least are the people who are most likely to have tailoring as a profession. It's like extra strange.
I don't know. Balgas the Warrior was a tailor for a really, really long time just because I didn't have a bag maker.
Tailor Enchanter?
Yep, was Tailor Enchanter. Still an Enchanter, but now is Engineer Enchanter. All because I couldn't get a helmet to drop that was Tier 6 equivalent in Burning Crusade. Engineering helmets were broken.
Yep.
Then they stopped being broken, and now they're not even any good.
Yep.
Don't tell me that. Actually, do tell me that, because that's some of the reason not to come back.
Well, I mean, they're stuck at, 825, 830, whatever the low level is that when you first get into Legion. So, they don't scale forever like the engineering helmets of old. I think the weirdest crafting system had to be Secret World Online with their, draw the shape of a weapon system.
Never did really figure that out.
Think really hard about the weapon you'd like to make.
Now visualize it. Now put components there. But they all have to be the same one. I think they were all like the same one. I've always liked crafting systems in games because I like the idea of making my own gear.
I
but
like
so
being
many of
self-sufficient,
Yeah.
Like, I like being able to craft my own gear, I like being able to craft my own potions and supply my own enchants, and I absolutely like it when I can either all on one character, like FF14, or through an alt army, do all of those things and be totally self-sufficient.
I have to say, I'm finding the crafting in Witcher 3 kind of funny, because I find it like it's almost realistic in the sense that there is so many crafting items, and many of them I have no idea what they're used for, and really I just go to the herbalist who stocks the stuff you actually need.
You could pick a bunch of flowers or go to the pharmacist.
I mean, clearly I'm going to pick a bunch of flowers because, you know.
Yeah, but what happens when, like, 90% of the flowers you're picking don't serve any good purpose? Or serve no purpose that you can discern? And, like, you realize that through your random flower picking, you've only picked one of the 4 flowers that is required to make a basic health potion. You give the herbalist some money, and she gives you the mats to make that basic health potion. You get a specialist who knows what they're doing to supply you the herbs.
I mean, to be fair, that's how I craft in Final Fantasy XIV. And a lot of the reason why my crafting stalled out is because I entered the zone where they stopped having the mats on the vendor.
Yep.
But the problem there is, like, a lot of that stuff is not even stuff you can easily farm other than go kill a bunch of stuff and hope sometimes it's going to drop the thing you need.
Mm.
Especially on, like, beast parts and things like that.
Oh, or send your retainer to go get it.
Yeah, no, I'd rather have my retainer bring me back around to Moogle weapons and and maps for the wall, because I have so many maps. I mean, in theory, I should be using my retainers for that purpose, but that is not how they usually go. Has anybody done the Eureka stuff in Final Fantasy XIV while we're kind of sort of talking about Final Fantasy XIV?
Nope. Not
I largely don't feel like I get it.
I absolutely don't feel like I get it.
I mean, I understand what's going on, but I don't understand why everyone is grinding, other than mounts.
Is that not sufficient reason?
I mean, it is a sufficient reason, but, like, I don't know. Okay, so starting in the MMO world in Everquest, I am intimately aware of grinding for things for hours. And that was how we leveled. Like, you'd go find a party, and you would go camp out the corner of a zone for hours, killing the same things over and over and over, trying to chain pull as efficiently as possible so that, you know, you can never not be killing something. And based on what I can tell, that's kind of how Eureka works. You have an artificial leveling system, and if you fight things that are too far above your level, you just get wrecked. So for the most part, you want to keep things limited to, like, even con or 1-up con. And no, they don't actually have a con system. It's just me saying that.
Mm.
And people will go camp that zone for upwards to 2 hours-ish. I want to say, I don't know, it's actually longer than that. I think the timer will go up to 3 hours. Before you get punted out of the zone. And I don't know, like, I guess for me, it's like, there's enough grind already in Final Fantasy XIV that I'm not sure why we added a brand new grind.
Well, I mean, the issue that I had with it is that I guess I was hoping for, expecting another alternate leveling system that actually translated over into actual leveling, and this doesn't do that.
Right. I was expecting something like Palace of the Dead.
Right. Like, that
and
has
that
its
is
own
not
alternate
what
leveling
happened.
system, but also it translates into actual levels for your jobs, and Eureka doesn't do that, and so it just confuses me instead.
They have to know, and they have to know that leveling alt sucks, and I don't get why they're not doing anything about it.
I mean, do we know for certain that this is basically what we're going to get instead of another Palace of the Dead?
No.
We know another Palace of the Dead is coming.
Another Palace of the Dead is coming.
Okay. So, I don't know, like, it just feels like busy work. It's, the equivalent is, like, I remember we used to go, like, as soon as I got off work, there would be a rolling group in Griggs End in Luckland, and we would just camp there for hours. And you'd maybe make half of a level if you were lucky. And that's kind of what Eureka feels like. There's been several times I've joined a group of a few people and chain pulled until we either ran out of mana or we got bored, and it didn't feel like the bar really moved. I'm only like level 2.5. And I realize there are like these train groups that will run around and like hit all the rares, but I did not get in on day one, and therefore I am not high enough level to meet the arbitrary requirements for one of these. And since I don't actually know what's going on, I'm not going to form one on my own. So I don't know, like just a little bit I've played of it, I feel like I've already missed the bus. And when it first opened, people were like, "Oh, you should totally stream Eureka. Like it should be really good streaming content." I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get it. You know, the least interesting thing to watch is when somebody's grinding something for hours.
Can you imagine like streaming old school EQ grinding?
Exactly. Like we would be pulling the same 12 mobs for hours.
Sure. So then what you're actually streaming is whatever discussion you're really having while doing this thing.
It's true.
Yeah, but like I can't even keep up a text conversation because there's a timer. There's a bonus timer that you get more experience the longer you keep the bonus timer going, and like it caps out at 30. And I've managed to get it pretty close to that before we ran out of mana.
So just keep killing everything?
Just keep killing everything. And maybe if you've got voice chat, you'll be able to have some conversations. But for the most part, just keep pulling. Always be pulling. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, like maybe this is an experience for somebody who didn't experience EverQuest. But so far I've kind of bounced off of it because it brings back way too many memories of those days.
Yeah. I mean, like, Belle, let's be totally honest. There's a lot of people, possibly more people playing MMOs now than would remember that from EverQuest.
Right. But it took a long time for the quest model to really evolve to where it is. I mean, I used to grind like that in City of Heroes, too.
Yep.
Like, I would go live in a zone and kill, like, the same 5-6 packs of whatever the mobsters were called.
Go kill skulls.
Yep. I mean, to some extent, like, when WoW came out, we still tried to play like that. Like, I have one friend that, like, ground turtles in Hillsbrad for hours, thinking that was the way to go. Actually, like, he wanted a specific drop, and Thoughtbot listed the highest drop chances being those turtles, but it was one of those random world blues.
It was a world drop, so...
It was a world blue, so yeah, like, anything could have dropped it. And he ground them. He ground them until he got it.
What?
Yes. I do not know how many he killed, but he was like 10 levels over the level of the turtles at that point.
Man.
But that was what we grew up with. Like that was the kind of MMO that we cut our teeth on, and it was like trying to apply that logic to a quest era MMO just doesn't work. And it's weird to see this vignette in the middle of an already fairly grindy game that is just straight up grind. It's like all the grind without the reward. Although technically I guess there are RNG based rewards where you can get mounts and shit.
I mean, sounds familiar. I guess most of the really rare spawns in EQ did actually guarantee you the item you were there for.
Right.
Yeah,
or they had a very small drop. So, like, if you killed... What was the thing in Guck that dropped the flowing black sash?
Oh, God.
The Guck Executioner?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, so basically, like, if you killed the Executioner, it was either going to drop a sash or another item. Like, it was one of two things that would drop. So you just had to kill it until it dropped the one thing that you wanted. I remember doing that camp a lot. We were very fluent in Guck. Anyway, enough of that nonsense. Kodra, you were talking briefly about Witcher 3, and I know you have more things to say, so why don't you branch out into that?
Witcher 3 is a way better game than its opening, like, sequence makes me think it is. Like, I think both Tam and I had this exact same experience where we played probably, like, 5 minutes of this game, and we're like, this is making me feel bad and gross.
Oh. I felt bad and gross for at least 2 hours of that game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, I can tell you the moment where I stopped playing, but no, go ahead.
Like, the game opens up really exploitatively. Like, it's the most male-gazy scene I think I've ever seen in a video game.
That's really saying something.
I mean, so it opens up with the shot that everyone posts of, like, Geralt of Riviera in his bathtub, like, just chilling with his legs open. But then he gets out of the bathtub, and there is a naked woman on a chair with, like, her ass fully hanging out, like, just slowly combing her hair and, like, talking to him out, like... And the shot is always, like, right there on this naked lady that he is obviously really attracted to.
Oh,
And
it's
I'm
like the Miranda Lawson thing in Mass Effect 2.
Yeah, I mean, Miranda is at least wearing clothes.
Fair.
And so I saw that and I was like, this seems really pandery and gross. So the first time I was like, I'm not going to play this game anymore. And then I heard from a lot of people, many of whom I trust quite a lot when it comes to games, that this is actually really great. So I pushed past that. And I'm now in, like, the opening area, and it's, like, completely reasonable what's going on, I feel like.
It's a really cool game once you get past that weirdness, and there's also other weirdness later in the game.
Oh.
Yeah, so the moment where I checked out was I saw that scene, and everybody who I talked to said, like, that scene is dumb, it gets better. Okay. And then I got to, like, the first town or whatever, and it was like, hey, this is a downtrodden village of scared people. They all look terrible except that one person who's inexplicably this, like, carefully lit, gorgeous woman in, like, significantly, like, not wearing a sack like everybody else in this village. And it's like, oh, I wonder who Geralt can sleep with in this village. And that was the point where I was like, this is gross. I'm dumb. I'm done.
The herbalist who you can flirt with and who has, like, a detailed backstory, yeah.
It was just like I was walking down the street and I was like, oh, that's the person. Okay.
If it were Scooby-Doo, it would be the one thing that's painted slightly different.
Yeah, I was just like, this is gross. I'm done. I hear it's got some great quests. I just don't care enough. But it's got some really, it did have some really neat, like, it did have some really neat other stuff. It just came in this gross package.
It is really interesting to me because it is, like, the closest I have ever seen to basically playing as a fantasy Jedi. Because I feel like I am playing as, like, you have basically Jedi mind trick that you can use to influence people in conversation.
I really like the whole, you have a magic dealing damage sword and a normal dealing damage sword. And you're screwed if you take the wrong one into battle.
For people.
Yeah.
At least the first game was really big on not using the wrong sword.
It is still really big on not using the wrong sword.
To its credit, it will automatically draw the right sword if you try and, like, engage with an enemy. But I mostly find the dialogue interesting. I find the characters interesting. There's an invading horde and they mostly aren't, like, portrayed as a bunch of assholes. Like, there's some nuance to the conflicts going on.
The bad guys are actually peoples.
The bad guys
That's
are
always a
actually
plus.
peoples. The bad guys are painted as some of the most sympathetic people in this game so far, which makes me question, like, the moniker of making them the bad guy. Actually, the real bad guys are the monsters. The monsters are awful.
I mean, the human bad guys are just like an invading army, but they're not like Stradley Whiplash, cruel army.
No, they're pretty reasonable with, like, interacting with the local peoples, and in fact, none of the locals are able to pay you well enough for you to deal with the big problem that's going on, so the invading army pays you to deal with it.
So they're not Kaiser's Legion. That's good.
Yeah, no. And you can help the resistance, and you can help them if you want to. And you can make decisions that have morally questionable results, like, you find out somebody burned down a forge, and when you find the person who did it and turn him in, the guy, like, sends him off to be executed in a peak. And it's like, well, that was probably a little too harsh for what I wanted. Maybe I should have, like, let this guy escape.
It's a game with a lot of nuance.
Yeah, except when it comes to its depiction of women.
It is a big reason why I want to be excited about that team working on Cyberpunk, but I'm also not.
Yeah, I do worry a little bit about
The good news
that.
is they won't be starting from a novel series that was like that.
I mean,
Yeah.
I guess.
But it's still a conscious decision to
True.
continue that, right? Like,
Yeah.
just because you're adapting something doesn't mean you have to keep all of the gross bits.
The part I find so weird is a lot of my friends online that are the most rabid fans of this are women.
Yes.
And I guess I've not got past the weird crudeness of it that kind of is the turnoff to me.
I had a friend who put it very succinctly. Her comment was, "You're grossed out by it because you're put off by it because you don't have it shoved in your face all the time. We have to look past it, and so we do." I don't know if that's true of everybody, but it was definitely a poignant comment.
I mean, I can definitely see where that person is coming from. Like, I enjoyed a lot of games over the years that were pretty gross in a lot of ways, but I don't know, I've sort of reached a saturation point where now if I look at something and it's grossing me out, I don't, because I have choices now. I think maybe that's a big part of it. Like, more people are recognizing, hey, that's gross, maybe don't, and there are more options out there that are interesting, fun choices that don't make me put up with that, or maybe to a much less disgusting extent. But it's frustrating to hear about a game that's like, oh, I think you would really like this. It's got, these systems you might like, or it's got, this story that's kind of interesting. You get to make these interesting choices, but no, you can't get past the grossness.
Yeah, I kind of want to see where this goes still, just because I know everyone says it's so great, but there's definitely something to be said for it, the way it handles like relationships in a game, which is weird because like ultimately the primary relationship is like you're trying to reunite with a former romantic interest. The combat is actually pretty fun though.
The part of the game that I liked the most when I was playing it, and I'm not through it, I'm still, I don't know, I kind of trailed off from it at some point. But the part I thought was...
Have you left the hinterlands yet?
Yeah, no, I'm in like the second area or third area. But the thing I thought was most interesting is like, I like exploring in these games, and there's reasons to go exploring. There's lots of stuff out there.
Yep.
Like, it is a carefully built world. And if there are things there, there's a reason for it being there, and there's not just like large swaths of land with nothing. So it is, it's really carefully populated. Just maybe have a few less prostitutes.
It does have a very frustrating crafting system though. Like, as I mentioned in the previous thing, I mostly never have the mats to craft what I want, and I can never actually like figure out how to procure the mats for what I want. So ultimately what I'm always doing is just buying the herbs from the person who's selling them.
I think mostly I found the majority of the herbs that were useful in like buildings, not necessarily picking them out in the world, like looting containers.
It also has you just stealing everything, which...
Yeah.
This game came out when Skyrim was still pretty popular and was developed in like the full swing of Skyrim. I don't actually find this mechanic fun though. I don't like stealing everything that isn't nailed down.
Yeah, no, I absolutely loot everying.
I like to steal things that are meaningful.
There's like really no negative to stealing things, so in this game, I mean, at least in Skyrim, I'd get in trouble. I never seem to get first. I never seem to get in trouble in Witcher when I pick things up from people's houses.
It's like, it's the Zelda approach, where nobody seems to mind that you're breaking all of their pots and taking all of their rupees.
Exactly. I break every pot in Zelda. Pottery Massacre. Okay, so Tam, you have been venturing forth into Star Citizen.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about what you've experienced.
Okay, so this game is like the running joke of the last 8 years. It is the crowdfunding, like...
It's not a crowdfunding running joke anymore because Mighty Number 9 now exists.
It's fair.
But Derek Smart says it's terrible, and he would know, right?
Lord. But like, I guess it's been the poster child for crowdfunding fleecing people. Like that's the rap it has, is like, man, all of these people, these stupid people being conned into giving them tons of money for vaporware.
I won't lie, as an outsider, it does kind of come across as a pyramid scheme that instead of ever getting busted, just keeps doubling down.
Yeah.
Because like every time you turn around, they're like, nope, we're going to go deeper into the Matrix. And now you're going to have ground combat. Or now you're going to have like the ability to fly from a planet to outer space without any zoning.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So and I've had the patcher sitting on my computer for a while. I was like, okay, I have happily joined in on the mockery, even though I've backed this thing. Like, I put this out of my mind. Let me give this game a chance. Let me at least load it up and see what's up. So it was like, this was like on a whim at like 11:30 last night after Ash and I were putting together giant robots. It was great. And then at like 3:30 a.m., I look up and I'm like, I should go to bed. I'm weirdly tired. So in that like 3 or 4 hours I was playing, every ship that I have, like 4 ships, because I bought one of those, I backed at one of those levels that gave me a handful of ships. I have like 4 ships. I can fly all of them. When I load up the game, there's like, go to a hangar and look at all of your stuff. Just like, you can see the models, you can hop in, you can fiddle around and like learn how to move around and, pick up a bunch of random stuff. Sure. There's like log into their alpha persistent world, which isn't really persistent, but it sort of is. It saves state, but isn't persistent. I'm not really sure how it works. It feels like logging into an MMO, honestly. And then there's like ground combat arena shooter, which is their alpha of their on foot combat. And you can play all of these things. And I did, and they all work. I haven't tried the arena shooter thing, but like, I hopped into the hangar, which I'd already seen before. It was like their very first alpha was like, here's a hangar. Here, let's show you how to press buttons on things, and you can look at your ships through a window. And then like later, like, oh, you can open this door, and now you can go into the hangar and stand next to your ships and hit all the little buttons that make them open up and stuff. And it's whatever, fine. That's a cute tech demo, but it's not doing anything. So I load up the like, I don't know what they call it, the game part, and it loads for a moment, and then has me like, I screen goes like loads in, and I'm staring at the ceiling, and I like go to move, and my character like climbs up out of bed, and I'm in this, I don't know, little apartment pod in a space station. I wander around this space station. It's giving me little pop-ups kind of erratically about how to make various controls work, and like tips me off about various things, like, hey, you can sprint with this button, you can change how fast you're going with this button, keep an eye on your heart rate because it's basically your stamina gauge. And so I like ran around at full speed for a while until my heart rate spiked really high, and like I started to breathe heavily, and they have like this effect where like everything gets a little red shifted and a little darker as you start to pass out, which is the same effect you get if you hit too many G's, if you like try to whip your ship around in a bad way and like almost pass out that way. And I wander up to there's like a set of consoles that are like, call your ship. I'm like, okay, fine. Call my ship. It's sitting at a hangar. It gives me a little like pinpoint update, and I can go up and climb into my ship. It's actually really neat because I'm walking around on foot. When I get to the ship, I can hit the button, and the ship will open up, so I can climb into it and then close everything up and climb into the pilot seat. And once you're sitting down in the pilot seat, it really seamlessly switches you from I'm walking around on foot to like ship controls. And much like Elite Dangerous, you can look around your cockpit and use all of the panels, except unlike Elite Dangerous, it actually is meaningful to do this thing. Because I have, in the first ship I looked at, I could change the readouts on all of the panels for, oh, hey, I want to track my mission just ambiently on my UI. So I can customize my whole, ship's heads-up display and all of the screen panels. I'm going to be, based on whatever I'm doing, I can have it display relevant information. Because there's a lot of information it can show you. It controls a lot like Elite Dangerous, with the added pieces of it will auto land your ship. Like you can hit a button and your ship will park itself.
That sounds like a plus.
That immediately makes it better than Elite Dangerous.
Yeah. I took a mission. I was like, all right, whatever. I'm going to check out this mission. I took a mission and it kicked off an audio recording. Like it was actually a VO'd mission with like, hey, here's stuff. Here's content for you to do. And so I'm like immediately interested, because instead of hold on.
That's so great.
Instead of a what's this called? Like Elite Dangerous will procedurally generate missions. So it's like X faction wants you to shoot Y people and report in at Z location. And like, okay, fine, that's a mission, but it's like the barest minimum of stuff. And so this one like immediately felt more interesting and human, even though it was an incredibly boring quest concept. Like the quest was, hey, my husband was killed and the insurance company is not going to pay out his life insurance because they say that this was the case, but I don't think that's true. Can you look into it for me? And I'm like, okay, this is not the most compelling of stories, but sure, okay, fine. I'll go like research this insurance claim. I fly to the place it tells me to, which controls pretty much like Elite Dangerous with slightly different stuff going on, but not noticeably. And it takes me to this like blown up space station, which is presumably where everybody died. And it took me a while to figure out what I needed to do, because I was like, okay, I need to go into this space station to explore, but I don't really know how to do that. Like, there doesn't seem to be any landing pads, or at least I can't seem to land the ship. Like, auto land isn't landing anywhere. Like, what do I do? And eventually it occurred to me, like, this is space. I don't have to, like, land the ship. I can just leave it floating there. So I leave it floating there. I hop out. I fly out of the, I just open up the thing and put on my spacesuit and just like hop out of the ship. My spacesuit has little jets, so I'm kind of flying around like in HEV mode into this busted up space station where there's a whole bunch of like computers I can access and information I can find, and I unfold this story about what happened in the space station. And it was really neat. And I'm like most of the way done. I find a bunch of stuff. I floated around the space station. It's really detailed. And at about this time, I'm like heading back and I get this little alert that's like, alert, intruder on your ship. I'm like, what? Okay. And I guess as it turns out, and it was like, do you want to lock down your vessel? Okay, fine. Yeah. So I did that. I hit the like, yes, please lock down my vessel, because my vessel had some kind of security thing. And so it shut the vessel off. And so I go out to see what's up, and I guess some other player had rolled up, and like I'd left my ship open. I hadn't actually closed everything. I hadn't like closed and locked my ship. I just left the door open. So I guess this person who had a much worse ship than mine decided they were going to jack it. And so I locked it down, and so they were stuck in it. So they couldn't leave. They couldn't get out of they were like trying to hack my door to let themselves out because they couldn't use my controls, and I just blew up my ship with their ship. So I took their ship, blew up my ship with them in it, and then went back to the space station and sold their ship for money, and then filed an insurance claim against my ship. And it was like, all right, in a few minutes you'll have your ship back because this ship is insured. And it's like, oh hey, I lose nothing from PvP. Cool. Like, I didn't know that somebody could just take my ship if I closed it. Fine. I understand. I was like, I understand this now. But like, it gave me a bunch of tools to deal with somebody taking advantage of my not realizing what was going on. And even if they hadn't, I could go to a space station and hit a button and get my ship back because there we go, easy. So that was nice. So get my ship back, fly out again, and decide to just fly at a planet because it's a space sim game. I want to see what happens if I fly straight at a planet. And so I do, and as I'm headed in, like, it goes from planet to clouds to atmosphere, and I realize that I have in fact seamlessly gone from flying around in space to on this planet. So I pull up before I crash, which was not great for my consciousness because gravity suddenly makes G's happen. But like my ship controlled a little differently in atmosphere and with gravity. It wasn't like enough to throw me off, but it was noticeable. It was this nice seamless transition.
Cool.
Like for a game that is supposedly in bare bones alpha, there was a surprising amount to do, and a lot of it was really neat. Like I could have one of my ships can seat like 3 or 4 people, and I kind of wonder what that's like. I haven't gotten any like dogfights yet. I want to try that out, but like in alpha, I like it better than I liked Elite Dangerous, and I liked Elite Dangerous a decent amount, but this felt more immersive and not just like I was a ship and a bunch of menus. And the ships are way better designed. Like, my ship looks cool, and I think it's super fun to fly around in it.
The hangar was the first thing they released for a reason. Their ship design is pretty great.
The what?
So the hangar was the first thing they released for a reason. Their ship design is pretty great.
Yeah, it is. And, like, I have a big ship that it's my ship, but I can walk around in it. Like, you can hop out of the captain's seat or the pilot's seat or whatever and, like, walk around your ship in first person. So it feels like this, like a real space. You can also vent the atmosphere in your ship if you want to do that. They recommend that you wear a spacesuit. You don't necessarily have to do this, but maybe don't go out in the airlock if you're not wearing a spacesuit. I tested this, by the way. It's not a good time. But yeah, I was surprised at how much is there for a game that is so, like, it gets so much flack for not doing anything, but there's a lot of game there. If they just kept that, ran some optimizations on it, and added content, I would be very happy with what I had and would feel like Star Citizen had delivered what they were promising to me, which I think is the weird part. I was not expecting to play something that felt like it could actually deliver on its promises.
Right. Yeah, because that's really always been the question: is could this expansive, huge thing that Chris Roberts promised ever actually truly exist? Maybe it can.
Yeah, that was my final takeaway, was like, this could be a real game. Anyway, it was interesting. I don't know if I'd recommend dropping money on it yet, but it might be something that you might want to drop money on at some point.
I think the key problem there is that the buy-in is still pretty steep from what I can see. I mean, it looks like the smallest package for what is essentially like a starfighter is $45.
Yeah, which is about the cost of a video game.
Which is fine when you're talking about a finished game.
Yeah.
But maybe not yet.
Exactly.
Whereas they're advertising something called the Constellation Aquila, and it is $275.
Yeah, they will absolutely let you spend a lot of money on this game if you so desire.
I mean, that's always the other sort of questionable piece for me is like, okay, they're letting people spend a lot of money. How much is that going to influence what it feels like in the long run if you didn't spend a lot of money up front?
Yeah.
They have definitely made a point, and they harp on the point that nothing that you can buy pre-release will be unavailable in-game. And notably, what you seem to be able, and I'll have to see what this is about, but most of what you can buy are ship chassis, but like actual progression seems to be more on the like systems and stuff you put into your ship, which are bought with game currency that you have to go out and quest and do stuff to get more of. But I'm not really sure.
There is something called the Verse Pack, which is 10 ships for $795.
It's basically a lot of money.
Yeah, and I have no idea how any of that is going to look when like the game is done. I have the I think it was 2 ships that came in my pledge, and then some others that I got in like a contest at one point at a PAX like years ago. Which admittedly, one of them is some fancy big ship that I don't actually remember what it's called, but I have to look it up. But I haven't tried flying that one around yet.
So did these ships that you got from your pre-order and such, did they just automatically come with insurance on them?
Yeah, a couple of them have lifetime insurance.
Yeah, so that's probably why they're theoretically worth it. Because
insurance seems to be their equivalent of a subscription.
Because it could have been real bad if somebody jacked your ship in another game if you didn't have it insured.
Yeah.
Say Eve.
Yeah, exactly. Which creates a sort of interesting, there's a sort of interesting potential interaction there where, I have, I play this game for free. And, if somebody jacks my ship, that's real bad for me, but I have a bunch of them. There's a reason for me to have a bunch of them, even a bunch of the same one. So just owning one isn't the end-all, be-all. Like, maybe you want a few, or maybe you want a few with a different set of different loadouts or whatever. And if you don't want to deal with any of that nonsense, you can basically pay their sub and have insurance or something. I'm not actually sure how it works, but that seems like it would make sense to me.
Yeah. So, Kodra, well, did you have something else to say, Tam? Sorry.
Oh, I can envision a situation in which that's a thing that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, Kodra. You were talking earlier before the podcast about how Demon Souls has not held up to the test of time.
It's true. So, the first zone, probably fine. It's probably still a decent zone. But the later zones, Dark Souls has stood up to the test of time. And I've thought, because I still play that game. I still go back, I play Dark Souls, I'm like, this is still fun. I never played Demon Souls, seriously. I played it once after I had gotten into Dark Souls, and I didn't really get very far, but I wasn't good at Souls games yet. I am now pretty good at Souls games. This game is not good. Boletaria still holds up, especially the first zone, because it's doing the things where you're winding through a pretty long zone, but you're unlocking shortcuts periodically. It's following sort of what you would call Soulsian level design. But Latria, even with the shortcuts that it's opening up, is just copy-pasted environment after copy-pasted environment, and you just get lost in this dungeon. And it's really boring to grind through. Normally in a Souls game, I can sort of talk about a place and talk about routes, and people will know what I'm talking about. But here, I could never get comfortable with the routes I was taking through the map, because everything looked identical. And I didn't realize how much, the environment and the uniqueness of the areas mattered to a Souls game.
Yeah, that was a part of that game that I did not enjoy.
It was the first one I played, and I sort of bounced off of it.
It really does feel like Dark Souls 3 is trying to do Demon Souls, but good. A lot of Demon Souls reminds me of Dark Souls 3, only bad.
Oh, maybe they came back later?
Yeah, maybe they're we had good ideas here. Let's make them work. Notably, though, my frustrations with Dark Souls 3 are most of them trying to go back and revisit Demon Souls ideas. So maybe it worked, but maybe Dark Souls was still a very welcome departure.
I feel kind of after my Monster Hunter experience that I should go give Dark Souls another chance. Not that I'm going to say that Monster Hunter is a Dark Soulsian game. I just mean the same kind of logic you apply in fighting a monster, you kind of apply in fighting that entire world. That it's trial and error and repetition and figuring out how to get good.
I feel like Monster Hunter is a lot more forgiving. Monster Hunter is it punishes you specifically less for making a mistake.
Yeah.
Right,
I feel
longer while making not that many mistakes.
I feel like Monster Hunter is a little bit less on the play super defensively, because you can't really play defensively.
That's entirely untrue.
Or okay, you play very carefully. I've watched you play Monster Hunter, but versus a Souls game, or I'm thinking of Neo, because it's the one that I'm most familiar with, where you like move very slowly and very deliberately in guard all the time, because the game is specifically built to punish you for not being very methodical. I don't feel like Monster Hunter punishes you for not being super methodical.
I think mostly it's just a game I want to spend some more time in, because I've never really given it enough of a chance.
I recommend it. A lot. Probably too much. Because, as the panel states, talking to Dark Souls fan is the Dark Souls of talking.
So, do we have anything else we want to talk about before we wrap things up?
I think we're good.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next week. Good night!
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you.